Hello and welcome to Tinnitus Week. I'm Joanne Gordon, Coordinator of the Chesterfield and North Derbyshire Tinnitus Support Group. We're going to show you a series of videos in conversation with our member, Audrey Carlin, who is our founder member. Hello, Audrey.
Hello.
So my first question to you is, how did your tinnitus start?
The day my tinnitus started, it was what I would call a normal day. My children were at primary school and it had been the school sports day. After picking them up from school, we went along to a friend's house who'd got two children the same age, and then later on, when they'd gone to bed in the evening, I went along to another friend's house where we were labelling up tins for fundraising we were doing for a girls' craft group that I was running at the village school. It was whilst at her house that I suddenly heard this noise like a siren. It sounded like the days when the television used to go off at 11 o'clock at night, and if you hadn't switched it off, then it would emit this siren sound. I put my hands over my ears and discovered that the noise was actually inside my head.
Okay, and how did you feel when you first started with tinnitus?
Well, when I started, it was at a time when very little was known about tinnitus, and even less was spoken about it. I felt absolutely devastated, as it affected my life so much. It affected my confidence and concentration and my ability to function at a normal level. I needed to know what it was and how the noise could be switched off. I did as most people do, and still do nowadays. I searched for a cure or something that would ease the noise, not realizing that by doing so, I was in fact increasing my awareness of the tinnitus. I know now, of course, that although this is completely normal, a normal reaction, it is not helpful. I felt isolated and couldn't find anyone like myself who was suffering with tinnitus. However, the good news now is that support is available to help people through the difficult time when they are first diagnosed with tinnitus.
Yeah, absolutely. So what helped you most when you started with tinnitus?
There were four things. The first one was visiting my GP. The second one was meeting Margot Boss, who was a hearing therapist at Chesterfield Royal Hospital at the time. The third one was setting up our support group, and the fourth one was attending BTA conferences to learn more about tinnitus.
Okay, so can you explain a little more of how they helped?
Going to see my GP, he was a man who was quite unique in his approach.
Okay.
When I went to see my GP, he allowed me to talk. He allowed me to talk about my tinnitus and didn't reach for a prescription. Nor did he say I would have to go away and learn to live with it. He gave me hope. He said that although he didn't know much about tinnitus, he knew a lot about the brain, which I now know is a key factor, and that a noise that is there constantly, the brain will learn to accept it as another bodily function, and therefore it would ignore it. This is referred to nowadays as habituation. His words gave me hope, and that is what we do within our group.
Mm-hmm.
He did refer me to ENT for the usual examinations. I would add that I hope GPs today do refer their tinnitus patients to ENT and audiology, as this is extremely important, and there is now NICE guidelines that the GPs have which should be adhered to. It is important that anyone suffering from tinnitus goes along to see their GP and follow the appropriate pathway.
Okay, yes, that's true. So how did you meet the hearing therapist?
This was really quite by chance. I had been discharged from the hospital some 18 months earlier when I received a call for an appointment to meet Margot Boss, who was the hearing therapist then. I went along as it was an opportunity to discuss and learn more.
And how did the group set up?
Margot was particularly helpful and very interested in helping patients with tinnitus. She had done a dissertation about tinnitus, and wanted to put into practice what she had learned. And it was at this point, when I met her, that she asked me if I was interested in helping her to set up a support group. I didn't hesitate, as I saw a real need to provide others with some sort of help and be a listening ear.
Mm-hmm. So finding someone who can listen and empathise is important, is that correct?
Absolutely. The initial support of my GP and then the hearing therapist gave me such a lot of confidence that I have never looked back. It might seem a strange thing to say, but tinnitus has helped me manage all the hurdles that have come along throughout life. This is because I have learned about myself, learned how to manage my emotional response to situations, and I have also made a lot of friends along the way.
Hi, thank you. So why did you want to get involved in organising the Chesterfield and North Derbyshire Tinnitus Support Group?
There's nothing better than supporting someone who is desperate for help with their tinnitus and to alleviate their isolation. I know how important it is to have someone who will listen to what you have to say. People need to express themselves and to ask questions. So my aim throughout the conversation with you is to hear what you, the person with tinnitus, has to say, to understand what you are saying, ask appropriate questions, and then to give you encouragement and support to help you to start the process of learning to manage your tinnitus, which in fact is learning to manage your reactions and emotions, and what you can do to minimize your anxiety. Of course, if you have not been to see your GP, I would advise that you do so to get a proper diagnosis and for referral on to the appropriate patient pathway. Each conversation, whether that be by phone, email, or one-to-one, when we're able to do that again, is followed up with a letter to you, referring to our conversation and explaining everything that we have discussed, along with helpful leaflets and self-help information. However, we would continue to offer you help and support as and when you need it, and the opportunity to join our group if you wish to do so.
You said earlier that tinnitus has helped you to manage all the hurdles that came along throughout your life. Can you explain what you mean by this, please?
One of the main things I learned was that tinnitus evokes a negative reaction. Without the appropriate help and advice, this negativity will continue and spiral out of control. However, learning to understand about our emotions and the fact that tinnitus is closely linked to the emotional system, or the emotional part of our brain, throws a light on how and why we react in this negative way. Many people will have heard about the fight or flight response and the saber-toothed tiger. This response goes back to our predecessors, the caveman. When the caveman heard a noise, it spelt danger to him, and so he responded accordingly. The fear resulted in the fight-flight response. This is exactly what happens to us today. However, the saber-toothed tiger is replaced by today's stressors, which can be anything from what is happening right now with COVID, bereavement, work-related stress, relationships, moving house, and many more. Knowing this helped me to overcome the challenges I have faced in my life.
You also mentioned the British Tinnitus Association. How did they help?
From 1984, I went along to all the BTA conferences as I needed to learn more about tinnitus, which not only helped me, but allowed me to help others. We have very close links with the BTA, and I am currently one of their vice presidents. However, we still run our local support group and have done so regularly without a break since 1984. Research which was undertaken with the BTA has proved that a support group can help people enormously with management of their tinnitus, as they get the opportunity to meet and enjoy the company of others, which helps with the isolation they feel as well as learning more about their tinnitus, which helps to take away the fear and anxiety. The BTA fund a lot of research, and we always let our members know about this and encourage them to take part if they so wish.
Thank you, Audrey. That's really useful information. I'm just going to now put on screen the numbers that if anybody needs to contact us or the BTA, they can do. So here are the numbers to either contact the Chesterfield and North Derbyshire Tinnitus Support Group by telephone or email, and our website, as well as the contact numbers for the British Tinnitus Association. Thank you for listening.